Hi guys, this is Maeve from Dietetically speaking. I'm just starting out this Facebook Live. I'm just on a little bit early, just to get started, and I'll wait a few moments though, just before properly getting started with what I'm going to talk about. But just for anybody who is on at the moment, what I will be talking about today is mainly my experience of working as a digital dietitian while I was traveling, which I did for most of last year. And I suppose I'll talk a bit about dietetically speaking, social media and blog pages that I run, and then just if anyone has any other questions. And I did have a few questions that have come through as well. So if anyone's watching, actually, if you could just let me know, can you hear me okay? Okay, yeah, someone said hello there. Hi. Good. So hopefully you can hear me. Um, so I was glad actually I got a few questions before this Facebook Live. So that's always good. Just so we'll have a few more things to talk about. And I'll expect to be talking for about half an hour, but we'll see how many questions I get and how long it takes to cover everything. And before I get started as well, just to let you all know, there's a blog post I've written and it's called, I think it's called Working as a Dietitian While Traveling. So if you Google dietetically speaking traveling or something like that, it will come up. So that'll be a lot of the things I'll be speaking about is kind of expanding on there. So and there's lots of links and things. So that's quite a useful one if you're interested in the thought of working remotely or even freelance dietetics. It's really where I have a lot of my reflections and that kind of thing. So I have a few hellos there. So hello. I've got Lucia, I've got the Build Up Dietitians team, and I've got Giovanni. Thank you all very much for joining me. It was great. I really encourage you to write any comments and any interactions because that's what the Facebook Live is all about. So we've got about 2 more minutes till the official start time. So I think I'll just give you a little bit of background, I suppose, about me and who I am and my experience and my career so far, I suppose, as a dietitian. So I'm from Ireland and I studied to be a dietitian in Northern Ireland, so in University of Ulster Coleraine. And in the UK and Ireland, the degree to become a dietitian is 4 years. So it's roughly about kind of 3 years full-time university, and you have all the exams and everything. And then you have, well, for me, it was my last year was mainly placements, so it was split up into two placements, and that's where you get your clinical experience and you're supervised and you have to pass your placements and you have different assignments and things. And then at the end of that, and with doing your dissertation and passing all your other years and all your other exams, then you basically are that's your degree for to be a dietitian. And then in the UK you register with the HCPC, and in Ireland you register with Coru. So they're just the different registry bodies. And then you have different professional bodies as well, for your indemnity insurance and for professional support and development. So in the UK, it's the British Dietetic Association, the BDA, and in Ireland, it's INDI, which is the Irish Nutrition and Dietetic Institute. So we have Harriet joining us as well, good friend of mine. Hi, Harriet. So yeah, definitely great to get some interactions on there. So it's about 11 a.m. EST now, so I'll get started properly, and I'll talk about my experience of working remotely, give you a little bit more of my background, and as I said, feel free to ask any questions as we go along. So, as I was saying, I studied in Northern Ireland, and then when I qualified, I moved over to England to work. So I went to the north of England to a hospital called Sunderland Royal Hospital, and I ended up working there. I mean, that job was actually only supposed to be like a 1 year contract, but I ended up getting to stay there for longer, which was great because it was a lovely team and I learned so much. So basically, I worked as a year for a band 5 rotational dietitian, and that's basically getting experience in lots of different wards, so like lots of different medical, lots of different general wards, and then after that, so that was a fantastic experience. And you also do like clinics and group education and like different professional development for the department and things too. And then I got a job in the same department as a stroke specialist dietitian. So I was working with a multidisciplinary team, which is great. It was really good team working. And so basically, I was kind of part time on the ward, part time in the community. And in the community, sometimes you go out with other members of the team. So it was along with like physio, OT, speech and language, psychology, nursing. So you got to work really closely with those other professions, which is really valuable. Then on the ward, it was, a good MDT team as well. And then after that, I got a job as a pediatric dietitian in that same department. And that's an area of nutrition I've always been really interested in. So I found that really interesting and really rewarding. And it was like general pediatrics. So it was loads of different nutritional conditions. And it was anything from preterm babies up to teenagers. So it was a really kind of wide and diverse patient group as well. So after that was when I decided to go traveling. So I've roughly about 4.5 years of clinical experience by then in the NHS. And in the meantime, I had also started my blog, Dietetically Speaking. And so the blog I started in 2015, and that was basically I was just getting really frustrated with all the nutritional nonsense I was seeing online in the media, and I was having plenty of rants to friends and family about this. So I thought maybe I should just put my rants somewhere. So I started the blog, and when I committed to actually starting the blog, because I've been thinking about it for a while, was I was in Montenegro with my boyfriend, and he'd been encouraging me to do this for a long time. And he's a developer, a computer programmer. So, and also he used to be a web designer. So he was really supportive in, making my website and my logo and all that side of things, which was really, really handy. Um, so yeah, he was a lot of support with that. So basically, when we were in Montenegro, I saw that our local Skeptics in the Pub, which is this monthly meetup we used to go to, and it was all about critical thinking and science. So like experts in a certain area would do a talk in a pub, and we'd have a chat and things, and that was really good. So basically, I decided I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for the open mic Skeptics in the Pub, and that's when I'm going to launch my blog. So I was like, right, that's going to make me actually commit. So, so that's when I actually just decided to do it, and I started the blog and didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, this will just be for my own learning and just to get off my chest how annoyed I was about certain nutritional things. So yeah, and then since then I've just been really lucky. I feel like it's kind of grown a bit from there. And I remember getting my first like 100 likes and things on Facebook, and I was absolutely delighted. Um, and yeah, so it's actually ended up opening up a lot of doors for me in terms of the freelance work, which I'll get onto. And also just with my CPD and things, it's been amazing just for, keeping up to date with different things, and just really enjoyed it. It's just kind of put me in touch with a whole new community of dietitians online as well, which has been fantastic. Um, so if I backtrack now a little bit, so when I decided to leave the NHS to go traveling, that was December 2017. So at that stage, we knew we wanted to go traveling, and I still wanted to keep up working and keep up my CPD as well. So and I had been doing a bit of freelance. So because I had the blog, I've been approached to write a few articles and a few different blog posts and things. So I was doing little bits and pieces like that, but nothing really too major. So then when I left the NHS, I took on more consultancy work. So I was mainly doing consultancy work for a weight management company, and I was helping them with sort of internal nutritional advice or just any little products and different things they needed help with, basically. Um, and then I was writing for a few different online publications and like magazines for dietitians and that kind of thing. And I was also I was a member of the BDA freelance group. So you can have a profile on there, and that's where you can get some more jobs and things. So I got a few different consultancy jobs from there. So it was really enough just to keep me going while I was traveling, because my boyfriend, he was working full time as a computer programmer while we were traveling. So we started off in Japan for 3 months. We went to North America. So we were in Ohio, California, South Dakota. We went to Denver, Colorado, Vegas, that kind of thing. So it was a little bit of, taking breaks from work and then also doing little bits of work. So it was really good actually just to kind of keep up my dietetic skills and knowledge, but then also just be able to travel and I suppose have a bit of money as well for traveling, which was handy. So that was when I started to go remote fully with the dietetics and freelance as well. So I'm just going to have a little look at the comments here because I've been neglecting those. So Carissa is asking, looking to travel to South Korea, are you aware of any opportunities in Asian countries as a dietitian? So I suppose that question actually brings me on to I explained there what kind of work I was doing. So it's kind of the digital nomad type of job. So it's basically where you can be based anywhere. So it's not that you actually need to find a job in that country. So, in some cases that can happen. And if you do want to find like an actual job in that country, I would say to get in touch with the professional body of that country, or try and reach out to other dietitians who work in South Korea. Another thing can be like translation, but related to dietetics. I know there's a few jobs where you like they'll be wanting to translate I don't know, medical information, nutritional information to English. And it's more beneficial for them if they have someone who actually understands what the content is about. So there's a few kind of niche jobs like that, but I would say if you're looking for a job in a specific country, to reach out to their professional body or try and make contact with dietitians in that country, because I actually personally don't know specific jobs for South Korea. But there are the digital nomad type jobs, which you can do from anywhere. And that's what I'm really interested in because it just gives you massive flexibility to work from anywhere. So I'm back in Ireland at the moment, for example. I'm back doing clinical work, but I still keep up some of, the different writing and consultancy work and things. And I suppose in terms of where you find that type of job, networking is a really important part. So I think just, being involved online with other dietitians in other Facebook pages, such as this one with dietitians. I'm in like an Instagram pod as well. And the Facebook, the freelance dietitians private practice group, that was one of my most valuable resources while I was traveling. And people put up, job opportunities there. People have too much work, they would kind of advertise there. Just if you have any questions or just need any support or anything, I found it really fantastic. Um, and other things, there's a few different websites you can look up. There's one called Fiverr, where you can find different consultancy jobs. There is what's it called? I've listed loads of these in the blog post I mentioned at the start. So if you just Google dietetically speaking and travel or traveling, and it has the list of some of the different, it's like nutrition resource, I think that's another one, where you can like make a profile and kind of advertise yourself there for your services. But to be honest, for me, most of the opportunities I got was through having a social media presence, and then people would get in touch with me, or I'd be chatting to other colleagues, and they would let you know about things or introduce you to other people or that side of things. So I do think it's really useful actually if you're thinking of going freelance or working remotely, having that kind of I suppose like support and connections with other dietitians online, and just having a bit of a social media presence as well. So I'm just having a look at the other questions here. So we have Zainab, dietitian from Lebanon. Hello. And we have dietitian from the Philippines. Great. Hey, Belle. So digital nomad, build up dietitians, you're saying, love that term. So that is a term, probably with my boyfriend being in the tech world, that's kind of why I'm picking up on all of this. So it's a newer area for dietitians to work in. It's pretty well established for programmers and like designers and I suppose some types of digital marketers and that kind of thing. But in dietetics, it's a newer area. But I do think there are more nomadic and more remote jobs basically becoming available. So some of the ones, there's some companies now that are taking on dietitians to run sort of like web-based consultations and things with clients, and online like webinars and kind of group sessions and that sort of thing. So there are some kind of official companies that are setting up and taking on dietitians in that way. Now, that will be the minority. I think most dietitians who manage to do this, it's really setting up your own company, getting your own sort of niche and setting up your own group sessions, like online webinars, and some people have like private Facebook groups and things like that. And yeah, getting your own clients for consultancy or writing or web consultations. Actually, one of the questions I got from someone earlier today was about sorry, what was it? The question I was asked was about, yes, which platform do I use for web consultations? So there's a few different ones that you can use, but you need to make sure that any online kind of apps or platforms that you use are all GDPR compliant.
So they comply with this legislation of data protection. And a really good one is it's called doxy.me, so doxy.me. I've only actually started using it recently, but it's a really good one. And the client doesn't need to have, a profile or an account or like use a special app or anything. You just kind of send them a link and you can use that. So that's a pretty handy one. I have another question here from Jacqueline. How do you tell actual opportunity versus scheme? So I suppose a bit of that is always going to be your gut instinct. Also by looking up, if somebody contacts you, I've just gotten really used to the kind of emails you get where it's like, oh, we want to help you with marketing, we want to write for your blog, this and that. And you can just tell that they're just copied and pasted and not personalized. And especially, sometimes when you get contacted and like, for example, with me, like I would be, given out about something specifically like, superfoods, so-called superfoods or something. And then like a company reaches out to me that promotes superfoods. And I'm like, well, you clearly haven't even looked at my content. So you can kind of tell when someone has sort of just been fishing and just, emailing loads of people. Looking at their own website is another one. If depends where they're based. If they're UK based, you can go on companycheck.com as well, just to see how long has the company been around, and you get a rough idea of like financially how legitimate they are, that sort of thing. So doing a little bit of background can be useful. Um, and yeah, I think it is good to be aware of. And then also when if you're getting into any agreement with somebody, making sure that you send them over your terms and you have an agreement to fall back on in case there's any issues with payments or anything. Because that can be an issue, especially when you're not seeing people face to face. It can take a while for some payments to come through, or I haven't had it happen to me yet where like somebody just hasn't paid, but I have heard that it happens. So, some dietitians then like to get like 50% upfront, 50% after the job is finished, that kind of thing. Or, have a fee if somebody hasn't paid within 4 weeks or something like that. So I think a little bit of investigation is definitely worthwhile there. So some of the other things that I was going to speak about. So I've told you really about my background and about traveling. Um, so some of the other types of work that you can do, I mentioned the consultations and things, meal planning and recipe analysis. That's another one that's pretty handy to do if you're online. Again, it can be a case of reaching out to companies or to websites if you notice that actually maybe they don't have nutritional analysis on their site. Um, or it depends if that's the area that you want to work in. And if you're on social media as well, there's sometimes like sponsored posts, affiliate posts, that kind of thing. Just making sure you're really upfront about that so that you're not misleading any of your followers. Um, and then I want to just go through a little bit about the pros and cons of working as a dietitian while traveling. So I kind of mentioned overall, I really loved this, and it was really good for my CPD and just to be able to do some dietetic work while still traveling. So I really love the freedom of it. That was one of the best things. And the fact that, I didn't need to take a career break. I could travel while I worked. So it's good for extended travel in that way. It includes freelance work, and I really like freelance work because you have a bit more freedom about it. You can be in more sort of up and coming areas, quite a lot of variety, that kind of thing. The hours can be a bit more flexible. You can broaden your skill set, so learning about running a business and more about IT skills, that kind of thing. Um, and I suppose the whole like working with other digital nomads in like co-working spaces in different countries. So basically different places where they're either free or you pay to like use a desk for a day, use their internet, that kind of thing. But there's generally like a good community to go there. And also I feel like actually working in a country, even if I'm working for other, companies online, it does give you a different experience and a different insight to that country rather than just, the tourist life. But then on the negative side, it can be tiring to juggle work and travel. It's not just kind of all fun and games. You have to sort of, work with your time and, you're trying to see everything and be a tourist, but then you also have to get a bit of work done. So it can be a bit of a balance. Not everybody loves, I suppose, the running a business side of things as well. And there definitely can be stressful aspects of that. So I suppose it's thinking about whether that's for you, kind of running your own business. It can be more difficult as well to sort of switch off between work and when you finish work, because basically your emails and things are often coming through. You have your laptop with you most of the time, so it can be tempting just to keep working. Um,
And I suppose it's that kind of interrupts with like routine and exercise and that side of things. You have to be a bit more strict with keeping those things regular. And as I suppose it's a different experience to full-time travel as well. So as I was saying, it's you get to see a different side of life in a different country, but I mean, there's definitely less of a kind of party vibe, I suppose, than someone who's like just going traveling. So there's a little bit maybe less freedom in that way, but then you might have freedom to travel for longer. Um, so yes, there's definitely a good few different pros and cons there. In terms of getting started, so as I mentioned, I kind of got started gradually. So I started doing those little bits of freelance work on the side while I was still in the NHS. And I found that a really useful way of kind of dipping my toe in, starting to get used to things. And I also gave myself about a month before going traveling of just concentrating on setting up a business. And you have to register your business. You have to, get your head around tax and organize what you'll be doing for CPD and just start get used to all the different things. So I found that month actually really valuable just to get everything sorted out. And then insurance is another important thing to think about. So you will most likely already have professional indemnity insurance as a dietitian. So just making sure that, checking what countries that covers you for example. So the insurance I had from the BDA in the UK doesn't cover work for clients in the US, Canada, or the Cayman Islands. So just checking basically where you're covered to work for. And there are different types of insurance available, so you can always speak to different insurance brokers as well. Other types of insurance, I suppose, like travel insurance and gadget insurance, if you're bringing a laptop and phones and that kind of thing, that can be important to think about. Um, then you probably won't need as much the public liability insurance because that's more if you're seeing somebody face to face, the risk, if somebody trips over a wire or kind of hurts themselves. Um, so yeah, so they're kind of the main different types of travel insurance. Oh, sorry, different types of insurance to think about. And if you're going traveling for a longer time, backpackers insurance is really useful. And then I mentioned some of the places where to find jobs and opportunities. And a lot of it, as I said, for me was through being on social media and having connections with other dietitians. So that can be really useful. Yes, the website it was called Nutritionist Resource, the one I was thinking of, and I was also on the UK Freelance Dietitians website. But you can also look on traditional job sites, so even like on NHS jobs, on BDA jobs, on Indeed, on just kind of general job sites online. There can be, some remote opportunities there, so it's worth just keeping an eye if you're looking for remote jobs. So then in terms of CPD, this is something I was asked about as well. So how do I keep up my CPD, while I was traveling? And one of the most useful things really, I suppose, was social media because I was trying to post regularly about those things I was experiencing, like related to the food and the countries I was visiting. Or also if something was like cropping up in the news, that kind of thing. I was trying to do little summary posts about it. So I found that was good for CPD. Um, and then also there's some really useful resources online. So the magazine CN, so Complete Nutrition, they have a CN CPD section of their website. NHD have a CPD section as well, and different like specific CPD articles. Um, there is like the journal clubs. So there's a Facebook group for dietitians journal clubs, which is run by Claire Petit. That's really good. That was really useful for CPD, I must say. Different Twitter chats, so like Nutri Webinar, the RD UK chats, they're really good. Going to webinars, listening to podcasts and reflecting on them, just reflecting on any other sort of relevant things as well. So just keeping in the habit of reflecting. And yeah, I think they were the main places where I focus my CPD. If you want to have any more tips as well about the digital nomad side of things, I have some more information in that blog post I mentioned, which is on my site, working as a dietitian while traveling. But some of the main points just to think about is thinking about the tax rules in that country. Do you need to pay tax double? So basically, if you're living in that country but registered in another country, sometimes you have to pay tax both times. So it's just having a look into that side of things. And then just kind of general travel tips, like getting a local sim so that you always have internet is really useful. Obviously making sure you get your vaccines and all your safety advice and everything. Trying to pack light as well. So they'd be some of the main tips really around the travel and working as a dietitian side of things. So I'm just going to have a quick look here to see, do I have any other dietitians? Um, okay, how did I decide to charge since it seems like I do many different things? Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that I really didn't get right at the start. So I think it's really useful to ask other dietitians who are working in the same area as you to get a rough idea. On the Facebook Freelance Dietitians page I mentioned, if you're a member of that, they have some surveys up of UK dietitians and what they charge on average. Um, so for me, it's been a lot of just liaising with different dietitians. And also, I suppose I started off a bit lower, and then with the more experience, you can start to increase it. I tend to try and do like stick to an hourly rate really. So if I'm writing, um, an article, I would have an idea of, say for 500 words, how much I charge. So then if somebody wants, um, like a 1,500 word essay, or article, how much I would charge. So I would just increase it that way. Or if it's just a very like bespoke consultancy piece of work, I would try and think how long would that take me, and then work it out in terms of, yeah, my hourly rate really. So I think getting your hourly rate, your daily rate, and then a weekly rate. So just having to think about those things, and then just try and stick to roughly those rates depending on what the job will be. And then also if you're doing writing, I think it is a good idea to have an idea, per word or per 500 words, for example, what do you charge? But that can take a little bit of trial and error, and I'm probably still figuring it out, to be honest. So then let's see some other questions I got asked. Am I taking assignments in different areas or doing my practice while traveling for fun? So it's a bit of both, really. So it's more about because I want to travel and I want to keep working at the same time. So it was more kind of fitting the job around the travel, I suppose. But now that I just really enjoy doing that type of work, now that I'm back doing clinical sort of face-to-face work, I do still enjoy having that little bit of like remote work on the side. So, writing articles and doing bits of consultancy research, that kind of thing. Let's see. So, how has my experience been of putting myself on social media as a dietitian? That was another question I got. So, overall, been really positive, as I mentioned near the start. It's definitely opened doors for me just in terms of getting to speak to other dietitians online and like different opportunities that I know people have been in touch to ask me, do I want to work on certain things? That's been really useful. So overall, it's been really positive. You do get the odd, I suppose, negative comments or trolling or that kind of thing. Um, but you kind of get used to handling that, and it's not very often, thankfully. So it's generally, as a dietitian, you're pretty good at conflict resolution anyway. So it's kind of just de-escalating things. If someone's just being really unpleasant, I would just delete the comment. Or just sit, like telling somebody like my policy on my page is I don't tolerate aggression or angry language or whatever it is. So kind of setting your own boundaries as well can be important. But overall, luckily haven't had too many issues with that. Let's see, do I have any other questions here? I mentioned CPD a lot. I assume that's like continuing education. Yeah, exactly. So CPD is continuous professional development. So in Ireland, how many are we required to do annually? I forget exactly. I have it all in my little CPD. I have like a spreadsheet where I track all my CPD hours. I think it's like 20 or 30 hours a year, something like that. And I have at the top of that what the goal is. So yeah, luckily I've always hit that goal, so I haven't really had to think about it too much. Um, but yeah, I think it's maybe 20 or 30 hours or something. Um, so let me just see some other questions that I had here. Do I think it's important to get clinical experience before moving to freelance? So yes, I think I found that really useful because when you're working in freelance, especially if you're kind of off the other side of the world, by yourself a bit, it's really useful to have that clinical backing of experience. I know, I wouldn't have been personally ready myself when I was just newly qualified to go off and work in freelance. I might have thought maybe I was, but actually definitely wasn't. So personally, I was really glad of that. You don't necessarily need maybe as long as I did. So I was kind of 4.5 years of clinical experience. But I would say at least a year or two just to get, your core skills, just really consolidated before going off on your own. So someone else asked me about they're living in a different country than they're from, so they're registered as a dietitian in both. Can they offer consultations to people living in both countries? So this is something that I found pretty tricky actually, and it will vary depending on the country. So the thing to do is check with your professional indemnity insurance to see where you're covered. And maybe even speak to your professional memberships in both countries or even in one country, just to double check, what are the boundaries and what can you do? Because actually it's so individual depending on different countries. So I'd say speak to your professional bodies and check with your professional indemnity insurance to see where you're covered for. Another question here, do you have to factor in time difference when working with clients? That was definitely something to keep in mind when you're traveling and working as a dietitian, is especially if you're doing like online consultations with patients, then yeah, you definitely would need to think about time difference, make sure it's convenient for both of you. So, that might play a factor in where you travel or maybe what kind of work you take on, because it wasn't really as important because most of my work was consultancy and nutrition writing. So it didn't really matter actually time zone that often because we were communicating via email a lot of the time. What platform do I use for online consults? I mentioned that the doxy.me is pretty good. What platform do I use for payment? Again, there's a few different platforms. For me, it was generally bank transfers. So the company I was working with would use whichever transfer service they liked or just their own bank. A handy one is TransferWise. There can be a few like lower transfer fees with that, or PayPal is another handy one. Revolut is another good one. It's like an online banking card, and you can send direct payments and that kind of thing. Let's see. Do you find it difficult to build a rapport through a screen with somebody you've never met in person? So that was something I was definitely aware of and thinking about before I did any online consultations. And but actually it's fine. It is a different experience than seeing someone face to face. But it's still, I feel like you can still build a good rapport because you're still seeing each other and you can still get a good conversation and get all the necessary information as well. I was also asked, do I provide any takeaway resources when doing online consultations? Sometimes I do. Generally, I'll send an email with the main points we discussed, and generally the clients I work with tend to like take their own notes during the consultations too. Otherwise, sometimes I will send like a PDF of diet sheets that I've made or like exercises to do, that kind of thing. Let's see. The most challenging part, I suppose I've mentioned, but also I suppose with freelance work in general, the income stream isn't always reliable. So you need to generally have a few different jobs to make sure you're getting some sort of regular income. And then just the time zones, that kind of thing. It can be a bit tiring as well when you're working and traveling, as I mentioned. So they'd be some of the drawbacks, but overall, I thought the benefits outweighed the negatives. So I think they were really the main questions that I had. I'll just double check there's no more on the side here. And yeah, we've gone to about 33 minutes. So if nobody else has any other questions, I'll leave it at that. But as I said, you can find me on dieteticallyspeaking.com, and my social media channels are on Instagram and Facebook is at Dietetically Speaking. On Twitter, it's at Dietetic Speak. And you can check out that blog of working as a dietitian while traveling for a lot more links and information, or feel free to drop me a line or DM, email, anything like that. I just want to say thanks as well to Build Up Dietitians for having me on, and thanks for listening. Bye bye.